Om Sarvadharmasthapakasvam Sarvadharmaswarupakah Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Ayate Namaha. We are studying here Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, second part as the Sadhak Bhav, and we are in the 21st chapter, that is Sadhak Bhaver Shesh Katha. The remaining things about Sadhak Bhav are, as it has been translated in English, epilogue to the story of the Master Sadhana. And in that what we have seen that his sadhana has come to an end. But without making an effort, he had another realization, and that was of Jesus Christ. Shambhu Malik had read Bible to him. So that was Shravan, you may say. He had some conception of Christ. Then Yadunath Malik's garden house, which was very near Kali Mandir, as I told you the other day, if you go from Nauka Ghat, then first you will get Yadunath Bhavan. Anyway, so there Thakur had gone, he used to go, and there was a picture of Madonna and the child, Christ in the lap of his mother. Thakur had seen that. And when he came back to his room, he saw that picture again. And rays of light emanated from there. He saw Christ then, and that Christ merged in him. And the physical description of Christ which he had, Saradananda Swamiji says later on we found that out of the three different descriptions, one tallies with that. So for 3 days, the Hindu sanskaras had wiped out, and he had become a Christian. And then his sanskaras came back with the realization that Christ is also an avatar, and the way of the Christians also leads to God realization. In that connection, it has been mentioned also that Buddha, he said that Buddha was God himself, and Buddha sadhana he did not do because that is not different from the Vedantic sadhana. And about Jains and Sikhs, he never mentioned that they are incarnations, but he had a Jain idol in the Mahavir, Tirthankar's idol in his room, and he used to salute them every day, in the sense that they were men of realization of a higher order. And Sikhs, they were all gurus, 10 gurus were incarnations of Janaka, and at that point, Janaka, whoever he was, after the 10th incarnation, he merged in God. And so, as the Sikhs believe, there is no Guru after Guru Gobind Singh. So, he had respect for them. That is the other religions. Now, during this period, sadhana is over, pilgrimage is over, and he has lot of time to compare his own things with others. And so, during this period, what he came to know about himself was that he is an incarnation. This he knew before, but now it is confirmed in his own mind. So he is an incarnation. There is no liberation for him. That means he will have to come again and again. And that when he would pass away, that also he came to know. Then there is another set of spiritual truths which he realized during those days. That is being narrated now. We shall now, para 9, we shall now record the second kind of his experiences, namely those regarding spiritual matters in general, for the benefit of all of us. Experiences about spiritual matters in general, all religions are true, as many faiths, so many paths. True in that sense, that paths, as many faiths, so many paths. So, if you take the operative part of that religion and do practice accordingly, you will realize God. That is the thing. And this was necessary for the modern world for the establishment of harmony of religion. After attaining perfection according to all the faiths, the master had the firm conviction that all religions were true, that all the faiths were so, but so many paths. But so many paths. That means don't look at them from dogma, doctrine point of view. Just follow the sadhana prescribed by them. It can be said that the master reached it both by his yogic powers and by reason. Yogic powers? For performing sadhanas according to all the faiths, he realized in his life the ultimate result of each kind of discipline. It does not take one long to understand that the purpose of the advent of the Master, the incarnation of the present age, is to promulgate the truth mentioned above and stop the decline of faiths and end the quarrels among them. What happens? Physical science says that science is same in America and Russia. Science is same for all religion people. But your religions differ so much that how can we hold them to be true? Which is true and which is not? And for that, the answer is that religions appear to be different. You take up the operative part and you will see they are same. So that is what Thakur showed. So quarrels among religions makes people atheist. We don't want any of them. So that quarrel ends when we see that all of them lead to the same goal. Is to promulgate the truth mentioned above and stop the decline of faith, and that is the cause of decline of faith, because they have become lifeless. And Thakur practiced it and showed the result. So they were all revived. Thakur revived all faiths, and that is why we say Sarva Dharma Sthapakasam. Thakur revived the living faiths all, and so all faiths became alive. Decline of faith was stopped, and in the quarrels among them, for no other incarnation of God had fully realized this truth in his life with the help of sadhana. That means statements may be there. Ye yathamam prapadyante tan sathaiva vajamyam. But practicing and showing, because modern scientific world wants that demonstrate, and Thakur demonstrated it and taught it to the world heretofore. Up to now, nobody has taught this to the world by practice. if the positions of the incarnations of God are to be determined on the basis of the liberality of the spiritual doctrines they held. So we are comparing incarnations now on one basis. How much broad they are. On that basis, we are comparing religion. The highest place must undoubtedly be accorded to the master for preaching that doctrine. So Swami Vivekananda has said, Avatara Varishtaya. And Saradananda Swamiji has said, Sarva Dharma Sthapakastam. So the meeting between these two is that this Sarva Dharma Sthapaka himself is the Avatara Varishta. Must undoubtedly be recorded to the master for preaching that doctrine. Second point, what about the spiritual truths in general? Man must accept doctrines of dualism, qualified non-dualism or non-dualism according to the state of his mind. Very, very important point, practical sadhana point, experience point, not philosophy. And within Hinduism, within Vedanta, so harmony at home. Now let us try to understand this. I will tell an anecdote. Swami Vivekananda in parlor talks in Chennai, people were asking questions and he was replying. And everybody was fully satisfied with the answers which he was receiving. But there were some dry pundits, scholars sitting there. And they start to analyze philosophically. And one of them asked Swamiji, Swamiji, your answers are satisfying to the people, but we find some of your answers are according to dualism. Some of your answers are according to qualified non-dualism, and some answers are according to dualism, non-dualism. So please tell us, which is your faith? To that Swami replied, my teacher and I came to this world to show that these three come to man's experience according to his evolution. Some people who are intelligent enough in Shastra said, then you have to be called to be a non-dual person. Swami said, yes, you may take it like that. So that is real non-dualism, which shows that all these are on the way. And that is, otherwise, let alone quarrel between religions, there is so much quarrel between dualism, qualified non-dualism and non-dualism. And people start fanaticism, hating each other for that purpose. So, man must accept doctrine. That means, according to the evolution, he has to accept the doctrine. Talking of Advaita, behaving in the most gross Dvaiti fashion will not help a man. By reasoning, trying to establish Advaita, not practicing in life, will have no meaning whatsoever. Narrowness about Dvaita, Vishnadvaita or Advaita will not take a man anywhere. So, Thakur showed that you must accept, according to your growth, that which experience tells you. Secondly, now what is dualism? Let me, in my own language, tell, and then we'll find in the Leelaprasanga. Dualism, they say, is the lowest, but it is much, much, much higher than ordinary man. Please understand this point first. An ordinary man, in that two categories I will make. One is that God does not exist. Even if he exists, we have nothing to do with him. That is the lowest strata of common man. Then there are others who firmly believe that there is a God running this universe. But what is your life? No, we have nothing to do with him. He governs the universe. Let him govern. If they get some success, they may say, God has blessed us in worldly life. If they do not succeed, God did not will that. This much is their connection with God. They are not dualists. But what are the dualists? God exists. God is the supreme reality. God is an object of love supreme. And we love him. That is dualism. For dualist person, God is the most or only solely important thing in life. The world is not so important. God is important. And because of that, there is a love, a relation between us and God. So that is dualism. Now what does he say? Love God. So we love God. And we do not restrict that according to the doctrine that thus far and no further. Love knows no bounds. So when the love increases, the dualist experiences that I am so near God, I am a part of God. If God is the soul of the whole world, I am a part of his body. Like the tree and its branches, I am related to God. So this devotion, love, automatically raises the consciousness and we get this experience. That is called qualified non-dualism. That means non-dualism, but qualified. Qualified that I am God's body. God is there. God is one reality. We may say one without a second if you like, but the world is also real. World is God's body. I am also real. I am part of God. So this is called qualified non-dualism. God may be one without a second. They will not like that dualistic idea that we are all separate from God. We are all connected to God. We are all parts of God. We are like the body of God. So that is their concept. But what they teach us, love God. So that is the operative part. Now we love Him. And we love Him still more and the world drops down. And when we love without any bounds, we find that we have no separate existence than God. The world has no separate existence than God. God appears as the world. God appears as every part of mine. God appears as every part of the world. God appears as myself and as the world. And God is beyond all that. That also is realized by love. Here I will tell you some so-called Vedantis, let me tell you, they don't believe that love can lead to God because they have no experience. They have become dry in their intellect because of intellectualism. Vedanta, let me quote you, the standard book which I refer always for definitions of Vedanta. Sadananda Yati's Vedanta Sar. He clearly says that three types of relations with God will give akhandakara chitta vritti. That means no separation between I and God. That type of chitta vritti is given by three types of relations. Samadhadikaranya, Vishesha Visheshana, and Laksha Lakshana. Very carefully, please listen. Samadhadikaranya means in the same location, God is there. In the same location, I am there. So where is the place for I to stay separate from God? So my teachers, real Vedantis, told me this is the Shanta Bhav of the Vaishnavas. And Thakur told us that the old rishis were mostly having Shanta Bhav. They realized Advaita through Shanta Bhav. So I am in the same place where God is. Then it results into I am not separate from God. Now what is the Visheshana Sambandha? It is a dual cheese. Who am I? God so and so. Not the words, not my fathers and mothers. My definition is from God. Whatever that may be. God Das, Son, whatever that may be, God's lover, but I am God's. And who is God? God is mine. God is mine. My lover, my beloved, my father, my mother, my everything, my friend. What happens? The difference between I and God, God is remote. Ordinary people we see. In every competition I see the judges telling, there. No, God is not remote. If I'm telling some reason, if God is all pervading, He pervades me also. If God is the reality of the world, is my reality also. So, the love, this obliterates the difference between the two. This one has to understand. I will tell by some examples. The Vedanta Sar itself has given some examples to show that not like that, but like this. And the Tathagatit Vedanta is misunderstood that it is showing Vishesha and Bhav is not true. It is himself telling. The Vedanta Sar gives an example, blue lotus. Now what blue has done? The word blue has removed all the other colors from our mind. What lotus has done? It has removed all other objects from our mind. But it does not obliterate the difference between the two. Blue is blue, lotus is lotus. But I belong to God. God belongs to me. Obliterates the difference between myself and God. Because I am no more an Alpajna. I am no more a person with very little powers. I have no existence other than God. And God is not remote. God is my reality. So, love, one has to experience this. Love obliterates the difference between the lover and beloved. Then only it is real love. So that my teachers, correct Vedantis to traditional Vedantis. Ramakrishna Mission had a living tradition of Vedanta. And my teachers told me that is the four bhavas out of the pancha bhavas of the Vaishnavas. Also, Shaktas, God as mother or God as father, Vedic. So, and Thakur showed this, that any bhava sadhana, the base is Advaita and the result is Advaita. So proceed, do not stop till the goal is reached. This is the relation between Dvaita, Visheshta Advaita and Advaita. And love is the force which takes one there. Now, what is love? God is Satchitananda. That Ananda itself, when experienced, is called love. In the Upanishads, Satchit Ananda also is there, Asti Bhati Priya also is there. So that Ananda is nothing but Puriya. That is love. So Isha Anirvachaniya Prema Swarupa. The Lord Himself is love, undefinable, not as father, mother, that is the forms, but finally it is love only. Ananda only. So now where is the difference? And the third is Lakshya Lakshana Sambandha. That is the Advaita Bhav. That means when I say you, God, I do not mean that remote thing. I mean the consciousness. I mean the Anandam. I mean the Akhanda existence. And when I say I myself, I do not mean this body or the mind or whatever appears limited or reflector. I mean my reality. So, if you take only the reality, the consciousness of the reality, the bliss of the reality, then there is no difference. This is called the Advaita Bhav, leading to Advaita realization, and this is the Bhavatita Bhav, this is the Jnani's Bhav. Now, let me tell you also what the so-called Vedantis tell us. There is a commentary on this Vedanta Sar by somebody, I do not remember the name, but the name of the commentary is Vidwan Manoranjini, perhaps some nursing somebody. Now, he says that you apply Samadhadikaranya for some time. This Samadhadikaranya can also be called Adhar Adheya Bhav. So you say, God is my support for some time. And then when you evolve, you give that up and say, I am God's part, or God, I am God's and God's is mine for some time. That will help you to evolve. Then give it up and through Lakshya Lakshana reach the goal. That is what this Vidwan Manoranjini Tika tells us. And remember, in Leelaprasanga, Saradananda Swamiji has very clearly shown in this very sadhak bhav how iti sadhana, that is love and devotion sadhana, will lead to nirvikalpa samadhi. And there, please remember, he has shown two different angles. He says the love, bhava samadhi, that means the experience of God through relationship, becomes so much real to us that in comparison, this gross outside world is unreal. Now, when the mind has become so strong, says he, that this world which we experience daily is realized as unreal, how strong the mind has become. He says when the mind has become so strong, it also understands that if I obliterate all the differences, my joy is not going to reduce. My joy will reach its ultimate. When he understands this, then he reaches the ultimate. This is that the traditional Vedanta is telling. That now, not love, but this knowledge will give you realization. But Saradananda Swamiji adds there, or the love itself will make him merge in God. So you don't have to reason, you don't have to think, you don't have to go with the nanny's way, you don't have to give up your path and you are reaching the goal. So he has mentioned both those things. Those who read properly will understand this. I have been taught by people who had known, and so I am able to say this. So this is what Thakur taught. So all narrow, I heard recently, so-called Shankar, I tell you cannot reach God by all paths, made a remark. Only by Shankar Siddhanta you will reach it. Will I reach by Shankar Siddhanta or by change of consciousness? Shankar Siddhanta, Shankar had no Siddhanta. Shankar told what is the Siddhanta of the Upanishads. He did not create a new Siddhanta. And that Siddhanta was enunciated by much before him, even by Gaudpad. Shankar himself has quoted from an old scripture, some Pandakarika at the end of Chatusutri Bhashya, Sundara Pandakarika. So, Siddhanta is not going to give you God. If that Siddhanta helps you to change your consciousness, then only you get God. And by love, if you are changing your consciousness, is not the consciousness changing? Is the body as much real or as much important as it was if you are loving God? Is the world has the same value, same degree of realism if you are loving God? If you are evolving with the love of God, your awareness of the body, your awareness of the world will go on reducing, dropping down, and one day it will vanish, remember. So, it is this change of consciousness, Jnana Marga, love leading to ultimate change of consciousness is Bhakti, and all this is supported by the purification which you achieve by doing karma with dedication to God. So, Dvaita, Vishrata and Advaita are steps which you get through any type of real sadhana. Please remove from the mind. If Advaita Vedanta becomes narrow, it is not Advaita Vedanta. And that is what real Advaita tells us, all these are on the way. All these are the paths. All these are leading to the same goal if practiced sincerely. So, the previous thing is said by reason also. Reason means he did it, he showed it the reality, that is the reason. Now, second is the man must accept doctrines of dualism, qualified non-dualism or non-dualism according to the state of his mind. Secondly, the doctrines of dualism, qualified non-dualism and non-dualism came of themselves to each man with his spiritual progress. Spiritual progress, the doctrines came of themselves to the man. The master therefore said, so this is a statement which Saradananda himself is making because he has realized. The master therefore said that they were not contradictory to one another but depended on particular stages of evolution of the human mind. Everybody's reason changes according to evolution. So-called rationalists, they do not know that their rationalism is attachment to their individuality. Reason, children's reason is different. Young man's reason is different. A man who knows all philosophies, his reason is different. So reason itself changes. The other important point, Madhura and Vyas has said, Tarka apratisthana, Tarka has no base. If you do some subtler Tarka, there can be a person who will do subtler Tarka. Still, there is no base. Experience. A little thinking makes it clear, thinking by the calm mind. Everything is in tranquil mind. And that is why the teachers tell us to start with that Shanta Bhav. A little thinking makes it clear what immense help man can derive in understanding the vast religious literature through this realization of the Master. Religious literature, Vedas, is very vast. Puranas, Smritis are very vast. So some portions will deal with dualism, some with qualified non-dualism, some with non-dualism. We will understand that through Thakur. Swami Vivekananda has given beautiful statement. Christianity current Christianity is dualism applied to the Semitic races. Vaishnavism is dualism applied to the Indian mind. Non-dualism is beyond all. He has said that in these three aspects of Vedanta, all the religious systems of the world can be easily, rationally included. Read that. He has in his literature. Words cannot express adequately what an endless confusion has been produced and how intricate the path to spirituality has been rendered by the three aforesaid doctrines discovered by the rishis and recorded in the Vedas, Upanishads and other scriptures. Unable to find out their proper harmony with one another, the followers of each of these doctrines did their best to prove by torturing the text that all of them preach the doctrine as interpreted by them. The result of that attempt of the commentators is that there arises a dread in the minds of the people at the very name of religious discussions for the determination of the Shastra's truth, Shastric truths. So their discussion throws a man in confusion. And this fear has produced a lack of faith in the Shastra, leading to the spiritual degradation of India. It was therefore necessary for the Master, the incarnation of the age, to realize all the three doctrines in different stages of his own life and propagate among all men their wonderful harmony. The only way that will lead us to the understanding of the Shastras is to remember always this conclusion of the Master. Remember what the Master said on this topic. So he is quoting now Thakur on this topic. Know that the non-dual state of consciousness is the ultimate one, has to be realized, very clear. It is a realization that is beyond mind and speech. You cannot even make it a doctrine because it is beyond speech, beyond mind. So thinking also is not possible there, only realization is possible. Only the states up to the qualified non-dualism can be understood by mind and intellect. We understand this. If you apply the mind and intellect, which do not exist in the field of non-duality, how will you even understand the non-dual? To understand by reason, we require so many factors. That to be proved, this is granted, these are the steps. How can this reach the absolute? Non-dual? And how can you describe it? How can the mind conceive it? So, all this is only by evolution of experience of consciousness you reach that. Swami Vivekananda is a poem on Samadhi. At the end of it, he says, this cannot be intellectually understood. He only understands who realizes. In Bengali, Boje, Pran Boje Ja. He understands whose Pran means heart, whose heart experiences, he only can understand. So, you want to formulate, though Shankara has tried his best, to formulate Advaita in language itself is not possible. but it can be experienced. Only this stage up to qualified non-dualism can be understood by mind and intellect. Remember, every word of this is so important and expressed in words. Mind conceives and expresses in words. In that state, both the absolute and the relative are equally eternal. We say Leela and Nitya, and they say Nitya Leela. The Lord Himself, His name and His abode, all are of pure consciousness. So forms three: Lord's nature, the name, that means the sadhana, and His abode, His real nature. They are three in one and one in three. That is the qualified non-dualism. For ordinary human beings in whom the attachment to worldly object prevails, dualism is commendable because it is much higher than the ordinary man. For them, the loud singing of the Lord's name, His glory, His powers, etc., as directed in the Narada Pancharatra, is advisable. So he has mentioned the book clearly. There is a book called Narada Pancharatra, not the Narada Bhakti Sutra. Narada Bhakti Sutras is all Advaita only through love. But there is a book called Narada Pancharatra, and in that, this loud singing and all this is given. And that is for the ordinary man. So he has prescribed sadhanas for training the mind of all levels. And so one thing, yes. विषय बुद्धि प्रबल साधकेर साधारण मानवेर पक्षे द्वैत भाव नारद पंचरात्रेर उपदेश मतो उच्च नाम संकीर्तनादि प्रशस्त. Clear. So Advaita cannot be talked even. When we talk, it becomes Vishishta Advaita. We are the talker. And we are talking. So this itself becomes Vishishta Advaita. Remember this analysis clearly. So-called Advaitavadis, please remember this. When you are talking, it is becoming Vishishta Advaita. So Advaita, where is Advaita? In realization. How? Through this path. Third point about spirituality in general. People in general will progress by resorting to karma yoga. That is the important point. All this is philosophy, all this is love of God. But ordinary people are doing karma, have to do karma. Either karma bhog or karma yoga. No choice. Either you go away into the world or you go to God. Karma you are doing. And this Thakur saw clearly. He says that, I remove that. Karma yoga. Oh, very small type. अवलंबने साधारण मानवेर उन्नति होईल. Then you follow any path. Fitness for all this will come. The master put limits to the performance of actions. So Karma Yoga has a limit. Thakur is telling this. People say Swamiji has taught Karma Yoga. Please read Swamiji's book on Karma Yoga. He has clearly stated no path is independent. All paths blend into each other. And his Karma Yoga, he has clearly described that Karma becomes Karma Yoga only on the basis of Jnana or on the basis of Bhakti. There is no other way. So, without reading Swamiji's Karma Yoga book, we say we are Karma Yogis. So this also, for man in general, Swami Saradananda is stating through Thakur's realizations, which are followed by Swamiji in toto, all these aspects. The master put limits to the performance of action. Gita. Yastu atmarevasya atmatruptasya manava atmanevacha santushta tasya karyam na vidyate. For him there is no work. The performance of actions also for the spiritual development of man and said, Karma Sambandha Thakur Erup Sima Nirdesh Kuriya Buliten. The actions of a man with the predominance of sattva naturally drops off. So when the sattva grows, the actions drop off. You don't have to drop them. But till then, he cannot perform them in spite of his efforts to do so. So that is the limit. Then no Karma Yoga. To put it in another way, God does not allow him to do so. So karma is dropped automatically. Even if he wills, he cannot do so. Shamak karanam uchyate. Take for example a householder's daughter-in-law. This is a unique example by Thakur. Shankar, even Krishna, in making rigid classifications, become rigid sometimes. Up to this karmanishta and then dhananishta. But that does not happen in life. The more the experience of God grows, the karma drops out more and more. And for that, the unique statement by Thakur, I found in Shankar Bhashya also one place that according to the gradations of evolution, the karma is dropping. Thakur has given a beautiful example. Take for example a householder's daughter-in-law. Old style, huh? The more she approaches confinement, that means when she becomes pregnant, the more do her household duties drop off. And when the child is born, let me see the English term, Bengali. गृहस्थेर वधुर गर्भवृद्धिर संगे संगे कर्म त्याग एवं पुत्र हईले. Okay. And when the child is born, she has nothing more to do except nurse it. So when the God is realized, then live with God realization. But all other people should depend on God and perform all actions like the maid servant in a rich man's family. That means without attachment and all that, and dedicated to God. In the parable, rich man's family in the parable. That means a Dasi working in the rich man's house, how she does her karma, like that man has to do. To perform actions in this way is what is called karma yoga. To repeat continuously God's name together with meditation on Him and to perform all actions in the aforesaid manner, this is the path. Karma Yoga requires repeat continuously God's name together with meditation on Him and to perform all actions in the aforesaid manner. This is the path. This is the path called Karma Yoga. One point. One subtle point is missing. One subtle point is missing, otherwise this becomes terrifying. How can we do that? Jatota sadhya, this makes all the difference. Jatota sadhya Ishwarar Naam. See, English has missed this vital point. I was just thinking that people will say, this is not easy, this is impossible. But that is not what Thakur said. Please. Jatota sadhya. Oh, this continuously is removed in the original Bengali. Please change your translation. Otherwise, terrifying aspect it becomes. We cannot do that like that it becomes. As much as possible, repeat God's name. Change. Whole thing totally changed. It is the so-called Vaishnava's idea. How can we repeat God? They say, please bless us that we can repeat God's name always. Remember? Please change. Remove the word continuously. As much as possible to repeat God's name. Whole thing is totally changed. Let me tell you an anecdote. Near Pune, there is a place called Dapodi, military establishment almost. Somebody invited me there. There was a young couple. The man was a military man, and she was what we call a homemaker. They said, both of us love each other. Both of us are devoted to God. But a doubt arises in our mind, conflict, whether her devotion is true or my devotion is true. He says, she worships God always. And before I go to the military, she's sitting in puja. I put up all my uniform, shoes, everything. Stand behind her. Salute God. Pray to Him that I am going for your work. Please be with me. When I come back, I find that she is sitting in worship. I stand behind her and tell God, I have come back after finishing your work. Please bless me. I have no complaint. She looks after me nicely. Whenever I come, she will make tea or everything, make me ready before I go. So please tell us whether her devotion is true or my devotion is true. I told, if you had not stood there for 1 minute, then your duty would have been false. If she had not attended to your needs, her devotion would not have been right. So, each is right in his own way. And that is what Swami Saradananda is telling in Thakur's mouth, as much as possible. Repeat God's name together with meditation on Him and to perform all actions in the aforesaid manner. This is the path. So, I think spiritual life in full has been described. All religions, harmony, Dvaita, Ishtadvaita, Advaita, combined degrees, basis of all this is Karma Yoga, and there, as much as possible, takes God name in Karma Yoga, Dhyan in Karma Yoga, and do your duties dedicated to Him. This is the path. So the full spiritual life is been described. Then, fourth point, a community given to this liberal view is to be founded. Community. Okay. उदार मत संप्रदाय प्रवर्तन करिते होइबे. This is an important point. Let us take it tomorrow. So the fundamental points we have discussed today. Let us take these remaining points tomorrow. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakastvam Sarvadharma Swarupakaha Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Te Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.